Peace, peace. This your host, Selah Shalom, and this is the Cosmon Teachings in the words of Jehovah and his angel ambassadors from the Cosmon Bible, or WASPI. And the topic of discussion today is called The Story of Thoth, the Pyramid Builder. Now, in the Book of Wars Against Jehovah, chapter 48, verse 13 through 29, it states, Rotsag, son of Hiram, succeeded him, and Thamus, his son, succeeded Hiram. Thamus was a seer and a prophet, and could see the gods and talk with them understandingly. Thamus was succeeded by his daughter Hannah, and she was succeeded by Hojax, who was a builder on the temple of Osiris, commonly called the Great Pyramid. Verse 14. In honor of the prophet Darius, the first mortal servant of Osiris, whose name was Thoth, Hojax named himself THOTHMA, which is to say God thought. For Osiris told Hojax that thou art the very thought reincarnated, and behold, thou shalt be God of the earth. So here Osiris influenced Hojax that he is thought reincarnated. Verse 15. THOTHMA could hear the gods and talk with them understandingly, and to him Osiris, through his angel servant god Egypt, gave special care from his youth up. At the age of 16 years, THOTHMA passed the examination in the House of Philosophy and in astronomy and mineralogy. At 17, he passed the Builder's School and the Histories of 1,000 Gods. At 18, he was admitted as an adept in life and death, having power to attain the dormant state, and to see without his mortal eyes, and to hear without his mortal ears. At 19, he ascended the throne, it being the time of the death of his father and mother. So here is just an example of some of the mystery schools that was going on in Kemet at the time. Verse 16. For because Osiris desired to use THOTHMA, he sent destroying angels, and they inoculated the breath of Hannah and her husband, and they died by poison in the lungs. Verse 17. Osiris, through his servant god Egypt, thus spoke to THOTHMA, saying, my son, my son. THOTHMA said, I hear thee, O God. What would thou? Osiris said, provide thou a dark chamber, and I will come to thee. THOTHMA provided a dark chamber, and then Osiris, through his servant God, came to him, saying, verse 18, Thou hast great wisdom, but thou forgettest thy promise. THOTHMA said, In what, O God? Osiris said, When thou wert in heaven, thou says, Now will I go down to the earth and reincarnate myself and prove everlasting life in the flesh. For many years Osiris had told the same thing to THOTHMA until he believed faithfully he had so been in heaven and returned and reincarnated himself for such purpose. Verse 19. And he answered Osiris, saying, Like a dream it so seems to me, even as thou sayest. Verse 20. Osiris asked THOTHMA, What was the greatest, best of all things? THOTHMA said, There are but two things, corporeal and spiritual. Verse 21. Osiris said, True, what then is wisdom? THOTHMA said, To acquire great corporeal knowledge in the first place, and in the second to acquire spiritual knowledge. But tell me, though, God of wisdom, how can a man attain the highest spiritual knowledge? Verse 22. Osiris said, To come and dwell in heaven and see for oneself. THOTHMA said, How long shall a man sojourn in heaven in order to learn its wisdom? Osiris said, 1 day, 100 days, 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years, according to the man. Verse 23. THOTHMA said, If one could leave the corporeal part for 100 days and travel in heaven for 100 days, would it profit him? Osiris said, To do this is to master death. Behold, thou hast already attained power of the dormant state to control the course of spirit. That is the next lesson. Verse 24. THOTHMA said, Behold, O God, I have attained to the power of the dormant state, even as the musician who submits to be buried for 90 days. Yeah, and I go hence in spirit and see many things, but my soul is like a breath of wind and goeth at random. Verse 25. Osiris said, Provide thou me a temple, and I will come and teach thee. THOTHMA said, How to keep the body so long that it be not damaged, that is the question. The musicians who have been buried long and being dug up and resuscitated find their bodies so damaged that they die soon after. Verse 26. Osiris said, Thou shalt build the temple of astronomy, and dedicate it unto Osiris, Savior of men and angels, God of heaven and earth. And it shall be built square with the world, east, west, north, and south. And the observing line shall be with the apex of the Hydan vortex, which lieth in the median lane of the variations of the North Star. Verse 27. In the form of a pyramid shalt thou build it. Measure for measure will I show thee every part. Verse 28. And thou shalt provide such thickness of walls that no sound nor heat nor cold can enter therein. And yet thou shalt provide chambers within, suitable for thyself and thy chiefs, and thy friends who are also adepts. For I have also provided the earth unto heaven, and heaven unto the earth. And my angels shall come and dwell for a season on earth, and my earthborn shall go and dwell for a season in heaven. Yea, they shall come to me on my throne, and behold the glories I have prepared for them. So it's telling you here that in Kemet, you had angels walking the earth. And likewise, the earthborn ascended into these heavenly kingdoms of Osiris. Verse 29. Nor shall my temple be exclusive, but open unto all who will pursue the philosophies of the earth and heaven. For which reason thou shalt build it with the sun, moon, and stars. And this shall be a testimony unto the nations of the earth, that thou art the highest of all mortals, and first founder of everlasting life in the flesh. For as the angels of heaven can return to the earth and take upon themselves corporeal bodies for a season, so shalt thou master thy own flesh to keep it as thou wilt. For this is the end and glory for which I created man on earth. So here Osiris is deceiving THOTHMA to believe that there's everlasting life in the flesh. And it also stated that the temple shall be built according with the sun, moon, and stars. And the ancient Egyptians definitely followed the moon cycles. That's my calendar, and that's how I follow it. And I only apply the Roman calendar just to deal with the people around me. But my calendar is the moon cycle. That's what I live by. My sacred days, my Sabbath days are all based off the moon calendar and none else. I don't base my Sabbath off Saturday or nothing. So just like the ancient Egyptians, they dealt with the moon cycle. That's how they based their calendar around the moon cycle. Every day was based off each phase of the moon. Now, Book of Wars Against Jehovah, chapter 49, verse 1 through 20, it states, Osiris then instructed King THOTHMA to drive out of the land of Egypt all the faithists, especially the shepherd kings, who could not be made slaves of. Verse 2. THOTHMA impressed an army of 200,000 warriors and drove off the shepherd kings, putting to death more than 300,000 of them. And from the faithists he took all their possessions, such as houses and lands, and suffered them not to hold any mortal thing in possession, neither permitting them to till the soil except as servants, nor to engage in any other labor except as servants. And there went out of the land of Egypt to escape the tyranny of THOTHMA 3 millions of faithists, including the shepherd kings, the unlearned. And in regard to the faithists who remained in the land of Egypt, Osiris through King THOTHMA made the following laws, to wit. Now here are the rules of the land that THOTHMA laid down after he drove out the shepherd kings. Verse 3. Thou shalt not possess any land, nor house, nor ox, nor any beast of burden, nor cow, nor calf. Nor shall thy people possess an altar of worship, nor temple, no place of sacred dance, but a servant and a servant of servants shall thou be all the days of thy life. But in thy sleeping place and in the sleeping place of thy family thou shalt do worship in thy own way, nor shall any man molest thee therein. These are the conditions if you don't accept the Tanetas, or the Egyptian gods. Verse 4. Thou shalt not profess openly thy doctrine under penalty of thy blood and thy flesh, nor shalt thou teach more in the schools or colleges, nor shall thy children receive great learning. And of thy arts of measuring and working numbers, thou shalt not keep them sacred longer, or thy blood be upon thee. Verse 5. And if thou sayest, Behold, the great Spirit, or Yahweh, the ever-present, thou shalt suffer death, and thy wife and thy children with thee. And if any man try thee, asking, Who created the world? Thou shalt answer, Behold, God. And if he should further ask, Thinkest thou the Creator is ever present? Thou shalt say, Nah, but as a man that hath finished his labor, he sitteth on his throne in heaven. And if he further ask thee, Where is God? Thou shalt answer, On the mountain Horeb in heaven. And if he still further ask thee, Is the ever-present a person? Thou shalt say, Nah, the ever-present is void like the wind. there is but one ruler in heaven and earth, even Osiris, who is Lord, the God, Savior of men. And as is stated, any reference to the Creator was a crime. As is stated, if a person mentioned the Great Spirit or Yahweh, the ever-present, it stated that thy wife and children shall suffer death. So like I stated before, it was under these wretched conditions that you have no inscriptions or very rare inscriptions of the name of the Creator. Verse 6, who else but doth these things shall be put to death? Whosoever boweth not unto THOTHMA, my earthly ruler, shall not live, saith God. Verse 7, these laws were entered in the libraries of Egypt, and also proclaimed publicly by the scribes and seers, and yet with these restrictions upon them, there remain in the land of Egypt more than 2 million faithists. So with these restrictions on the believers of the Creator, the faithists, 2 million of them remained, while millions more left the land, going into the regions of Canaan. Verse 8, and it came to pass that THOTHMA began the building of the temple of Osiris, the pyramids, and he impressed 200,000 men, women in the building thereof, of which number more than 1/2 were faithists. And these laborers were divided into groups of 12s and 24s and 48s and so on, and each group had a captain, but for series of groups of 1,728 men and women, and for every 6 generals there was 1 marshal, and for every 12 marshals was 1 chief. And these chiefs were of the private council of the king. Verse 9, and the king allotted to every chief a separate work, some to dig canals, some to carry stone, some to hew the stone, some to build boats, some to provide rollers, and others timbers, and yet others capstones. Verse 10, 2 places the surveyors found stone with which to build the temple. One was above the banks of the great river Egon, at the foot of Mount Hazekah, and the other was across the plains of Nuf, in the mountains of Aokaba. From the headwaters of Egon, a canal was made to Aokaba, and thence by locks descended to the plains of Nuf, and thence to Gakar, the place chosen by the king for the temple to be built. Verse 11, and as for the logs used in the building, they were brought down the waters of Egon, even from the forests of Gambotha and Rucksack. These logs were tied together and floated on the water to the place required, where by means of capstone they were drawn out of the water, ready for use. Verse 12, as for the stones of the temple, they were hewn in the regions of the quarriers, and when properly dressed, were placed on slides by capstones, and then by capstones let down the mountainside to the water, whereon they were to float to the place required for them. Verse 13, the floats were made of boards, sawed by men skilled in the work, and were of sufficient length and width to carry the burden designed, and at the bottom of the floats were rollers, guioned at the ends. Now when the stone was let down from the place of its hewing onto the float, it was ready to be carried to its destination. And when the float thus arrived near Gakar, ropes made of hemp and flax were fastened to the float, and by means of capstones on the land, the float was drawn up an inclined plane out of the water, the rollers of the float answering as wheels. So here is showing you that this was manually done. It wasn't no extraterrestrials or no gods or no angels coming to do this. It was the people in the land of Kemet building these pyramids. Verse 14, when all things were in readiness for building the temple, the king himself, being learned in all philosophies, proceeded to lay the foundation and to give instruction as to the manner of building it. Verse 15, these were the instrument used by the king and his workmen, the gall, the length, the square, the compass, and the plumb and line. Nor were there any other instruments of measure or observation used in the entire building of the temple. And as to the measure called a length, it was the average length of a man. After trying 1,000 men, This was divided into 12 parts, and these parts again into 12 parts, and so on. So here it's showing you that the gauge, the length, the square, the compass, and the plumb and line were the only tools used to build the pyramids.